As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend. Proverbs 27:17. Welcome to Feast on Torah, where we seek wisdom from Yah's word and allow his truth to transform our hearts. Today's lesson is titled Iron Sharpens Iron, How True Relationships Refine the Soul. Proverbs 27:17 shows us that growth doesn't happen in isolation. Yah uses people around us to refine, challenge, and strengthen our spirit. Let's discover how the Spirit works through relationships to shape us into His likeness in Proverbs 27:17. This verse is more than poetic wisdom. It's a divine principle about growth, correction, and spiritual accountability. It reminds us that no believer was ever meant to walk the spiritual journey alone. The sharpening of iron requires friction, heat, and precision. In the same way, our growth in Yah requires the refining presence of others, those who challenge us, correct us, and encourage us to rise higher, rather than just having people around us who tell us what we want to hear and make us feel warm and comfortable. Stay with me as we uncover what it truly means, as iron sharpens iron. Let us begin by looking at the Hebrew word used for sharpen, hadad, which means to make keen or to whet. It implies intentionality and effort. Iron cannot sharpen itself. It needs another piece of iron to bring out its edge. Likewise, the human spirit, your mind, your attitude, your heart, needs the presence of others who are equally submitted to Yah to bring out your edge. This sharpening isn't always comfortable, but it is 100% necessary for us to be sharpened as followers of Yahweh. A blade may look sharp, but if it never meets resistance, it will eventually dull. Likewise, a believer isolated from others may appear faithful, but will slowly lose their spiritual sharpness. Think of it this way. A dull blade may still look helpful, but it cannot cut effectively. A believer without fellowship, without challenge, may appear faithful, but will lack the spiritual sharpness to discern and act according to the truth of Yah's word. Sharpening involves friction, sparks, heat, and resistance. That's how Yah refines our character, and He is not about to change that method anytime soon. James 1:2-4 tells us to count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance. Relationships can be a testing ground for that endurance. The Most High uses them to expose hidden pride in us, impatience, and self-centeredness. Often, Yah uses people and situations to refine our faith, to make us sharper in patience, humility, and sharpened in love. When someone corrects you, it may sting for a while. But correction offered in love is a gift from Yah, but the sting is worth it. When someone corrects us, it's easy to feel offended. But correction, when spoken in love and received in humility, is a divine tool for growth. Proverbs 9:8-9 says, "Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Instruct a wise man, and he will be still wiser." Iron sharpening iron is not conflict for its own sake. It's constructive confrontation that leads to righteousness. The goal of spiritual sharpening is not to hurt, but to make us more effective for Yah's purpose. It is all about the motive. Let us look at some biblical examples of sharpening relationships. 1. Moses and Aaron. Yah sent Moses to confront Pharaoh, but He didn't send him alone. Aaron was his spokesman, his support. Together they faced opposition, and through that partnership, their faith was strengthened. Who has Abba Yah sent you to sharpen you, but you took offense because they made you feel uncomfortable? 2. David and Jonathan. Jonathan's friendship kept David anchored in truth. When Saul pursued David out of jealousy, Jonathan reaffirmed Yah's promise over David's life. True friends don't compete. True friendship completes. True friendship confirms Yah's calling in each other. 3. Ruth and Naomi. Naomi's wisdom guided Ruth's loyalty. Through Naomi's counsel, Ruth found her kinsman redeemer, Boaz. Their bond shows that mentorship and obedience can lead to divine fulfillment. Ruth's loyalty and Naomi's wisdom sharpened each other. Through that relationship, Yah brought redemption and lineage that led to our Messiah, Yahawashi, HaMashiach. 4. Paul and Timothy's relationship. Paul called Timothy his beloved son in the faith. Paul sharpened Timothy through teaching, correction, and encouragement. Timothy, in turn, refreshed Paul's spirit with faithfulness and service. Their relationship demonstrates how mentorship refines both teacher and student. Each of these relationships reflects Proverbs 27:17 in action: growth, accountability, and spiritual refinement. Not every sharpening feels pleasant. Sometimes Yah uses painful relationships or moments of betrayal to refine us. Psalm 55:12-14 says, "If an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend." Verse 14, with whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of Elohim, as we walked about among the worshippers. These verses speak of the pain of being wounded by a close friend. Even Yahawashi was betrayed by Judas, one he had called to walk beside him. Yet even that betrayal fulfilled prophecy and revealed the depth of Yahweh's plan. Sharpening can come through disagreement, reproof, or exposure of weakness. But when handled through the Spirit, it doesn't destroy. It develops. The difference lies in the motive. Correction rooted in love builds up. Criticism rooted in pride tears down. The question is, are you building up, or are you tearing down? Ephesians 4:15 tells us to speak the truth in love, that we may grow up in all things into Him who is the head, Yahawashi, HaMashiach. The verse doesn't just speak of being sharpened. It calls us to be sharpeners. Are your words refining others or dulling them? Do people leave your presence strengthened in Yah, or does your attitude burden them? To sharpen others, we must do the following. 1. Walk in truth. Let your counsel come from Scripture, not your emotion. 2. Correct in love. Address issues with humility and gentleness. Aggression is not the way to demonstrate love. 3. Encourages consistency. Iron sharpens iron through continual contact. One conversation won't do what faithful fellowship can. There must be consistency. 4. Pray together. Prayer aligns both hearts with the Most High's will, preventing pride and self-praise. When we live this way, we become spiritual blacksmiths, helping others reflect Yah's image more clearly. Sharpened iron doesn't just cut better, it reflects light. When you allow Yah to use others to refine you, your life begins to reflect His glory more brightly. Proverbs 27:17 is an invitation to embrace accountability, growth, and Spirit-led relationships. In the end, it's not just about being sharper, it's about being more useful in the hands of the Master. Sharpening is a process. It's noisy, sometimes painful, and requires pressure. Some of you might be feeling that right now, but don't be disheartened. It is the necessary process for you to be sharpened. The blade doesn't complain about the hammering because the craftsman knows precisely what he's creating. James 1:2-4 already tells us, "Count it all joy when you fall into various trials, knowing that the testing of your faith produces endurance." Often, Yah uses people and situations to refine our faith, to make us sharper in patience, humility, and love. When someone corrects you, it may sting, but correction offered in love is a gift from Yah. Sharpening isn't always pleasant. Sometimes Yah allows painful relationships to shape us or even bruise us, even betrayal or disappointment. We see King David had that very same experience in Psalm 55:12-14. Let us look again at Psalm 55:12-14 says, "If an enemy were insulting me, I could endure it. If a foe were rising against me, I could hide." 13. But it is you, a man like myself, my companion, my close friend. 14. With whom I once enjoyed sweet fellowship at the house of Elohim as we walked about among the worshippers. The pain of betrayal cuts deeply, especially when it comes from a friend or someone we love. It's a wound that reaches places an enemy could never touch. Yet through understanding this, we learn to show compassion to others who have walked the same path. Betrayal, though painful, can become a teacher. It shapes our hearts, revealing where to place our trust and how to walk in wisdom. Even when others fail us, we are reminded to place our confidence in the Most High, who never fails and never changes. Yahawashi showed us the perfect example, forgiving even those who betrayed him. As believers, we are called to do the same, to release bitterness and find healing through His Spirit. Psalm 55. Verse 13 encourages us to seek wisdom and discernment in our relationships and to be mindful of whom we trust. David said, "But it is you, a man like myself." This phrase reveals the depth of his pain. It wasn't just an enemy's attack. It was the betrayal of an equal, someone who shared his life, his struggles, and his victories. In ancient Israelite culture, friendships were often forged through shared experiences, covenant loyalty, and mutual respect. David's words remind us that his betrayer wasn't a stranger, but a trusted companion who had walked closely beside him. That is what made the wound so deep. The closeness of the relationship amplified the pain. We can draw a powerful parallel here to our Messiah, Yahawashi, who also walked among trusted companions. His disciples shared his ministry, his teachings, and his miracles. Yet even he was betrayed by one who ate with him, Judas. Still, Yahawashi's response was not bitterness, but surrender to the Father's will. The betrayal, as painful as it was, fulfilled prophecy and became the doorway to redemption for all humanity. Likewise, when we experience betrayal or hardship, Yah can use it to develop us, not destroy us. Sharpening through suffering produces strength, maturity, and compassion, transforming pain into purpose. The term companion describes a trusted associate or confidant, someone who shares not only your path, but your heart. In biblical times, companionship was a sacred bond. It often involved shared meals, journeys, and counsel, all symbols of loyalty and trust. David's words in Psalm 55:12-14 recall this kind of relationship. His pain was intensified because the betrayal came not from an outsider, but from someone who had shared life and faith beside him. This brings to mind Ahithophel, David's trusted advisor, who betrayed him by joining Absalom's rebellion. 2 Samuel 15:12. Ahithophel's counsel had once carried great weight with David. Still, his disloyalty struck at the very heart of trust. In the same way, this moment in David's life foreshadows the betrayal of Yahawashi Hamashiach by Judas. One of his 12 disciples, who shared in his ministry, ate at his table and walked beside him in friendship. Still, in verse 13, David uses the phrase close friend. This term carries deep meaning. It denotes intimacy, loyalty, and covenantal friendship. In the culture of the Bible, friendship was more than companionship. It was a bond of honor and faithfulness. That is why betrayal by a close friend cuts so deeply. It breaks a covenant of trust. Yet even in that pain, Yah can bring understanding, maturity, and healing. Still in verse 13 of Psalm 55, David uses the term close friend. The phrase close friend signifies an intimate bond marked by deep trust, affection, and shared experience. In biblical culture, friendship was far more than companionship. It was a covenantal relationship rooted in loyalty, love, and mutual support. That is why betrayal by a close friend cuts so deeply. It is not merely a broken promise. It is the shattering of trust and loyalty once sealed by shared counsel and faith. This mirrors the betrayal of Yahawashi Hamashiach by Judas. Judas was not a distant follower. He was a disciple who shared in Yahawashi's ministry, walked beside him daily, and even sat at the table during the Last Supper, a moment of sacred fellowship. John 13:18-30. Yet Judas's betrayal, painful as it was, became the very event that sharpened our Messiah to fulfill his divine calling as our kinsman redeemer. Betrayal by a close friend is among the deepest wounds a heart can endure. It's personal, piercing, and challenging to comprehend. David's lament helps us not only understand the pain, but also develop empathy for those who have walked through similar experiences. When betrayal enters our lives, Yah can still use it to sharpen us, deepening our compassion, strengthening our discernment, and refining our dependence on Him. Like David, we must turn to Yah for comfort, justice, and healing. He alone can restore what betrayal has broken and transform pain into wisdom. Sharpened iron doesn't just cut better, it reflects light. When we allow Yah to use pain, loss, or betrayal to refine us, our lives become radiant with His glory. Sharpening is rarely comfortable, but it is always purposeful. Through the fire of adversity, Yah shapes us into reflections of His strength, mercy, and love. Proverbs 27:17 is more than wise advice. It is a divine call to community, accountability, and love. Iron cannot sharpen itself. In the same way, believers cannot grow in isolation. We need relationships that challenge, stretch, and strengthen us in truth. Isolation dulls faith, but fellowship, grounded in Yah's Spirit, refines it. When we walk together in honesty, humility, and love, we become instruments in the hands of the Master. In the end, it's not about who appears sharper. It's about who is more surrendered to the Master's hand. And when He sharpens us, our lives not only become more effective, they reflect His light for others to see. The process of sharpening. Iron cannot sharpen itself. It must come into contact with another piece of iron. It needs contact, friction, and purpose. This reminds us that Yah designed us for fellowship, for connection, correction, and community. A believer who walks alone risks becoming spiritually dull, but through meaningful, godly relationships, we become sharper, wiser, and more effective for the kingdom. Sharpening is not always smooth or silent. It brings heat, sparks, and pressure, yet those very moments produce strength. Yah uses people to bring out the hidden qualities within us, revealing patience, humility, and endurance. Correction may sting for a moment, but it shapes us for a lifetime. Accurate sharpening happens when truth is spoken in love, correction is given with humility, and encouragement is shared in faith. Every encounter, every test, and every relationship becomes a divine opportunity for Yah to refine our character and prepare us for His purpose. Rebuke a wise man, and he will love you. Proverbs 9:8. Actual growth always requires refining. When Yah allows challenges or disagreements within relationships, He isn't trying to break us. He's refining us. Endurance is developed through the pressure of connection, through accountability, correction, and honest fellowship. Every moment of tension can become a tool in Yah's hands, shaping our hearts to reflect His wisdom and patience. Ephesians 4:15 says, "Speak the truth in love, so that we may grow up in all things into Him who is the head." Yahawashi. Love turns confrontation into transformation. The key is the motive. Correction born of love produces growth. Criticism born of pride produces wounds. Truth must be balanced with love. Truth without love can wound. Love without truth can weaken. The verse teaches that spiritual maturity requires both honesty and compassion when we speak. Growth is the goal. Speaking truth in love isn't just about correction. It's about helping one another grow spiritually. Growth is evidence that the truth is being received in the right spirit. Our maturity and behavior should reflect our Messiah, Yahawashi. This verse reminds believers that we are all part of one body. Every word spoken in love contributes to the health and unity of that body. Hamashiach, the head of the body. He is the model for truthfulness, love, and unity. Maturity requires honest relationships. Real growth happens when we engage in honest, loving communication with others. Accountability and correction given in love help us become more like our Messiah in every area of our lives. Proverbs 27:17 calls not only for us to be sharpened, but to be sharpeners. Ask yourself, are my words refining others or dulling their spirit? Do people leave my presence stronger in Yah or weaker in faith? 1. How does the imagery of iron sharpening iron help us understand the role of relationships in spiritual growth? Answer: it shows that growth requires connection and sometimes friction. Just as iron needs contact to become sharper, believers need godly relationships that challenge, correct, and strengthen them. Spiritual growth is not passive. It happens when we engage in honest, spirit-led fellowship. 2. In what ways can you actively participate in a community that sharpens your faith and character? Answer: by being open to correction, offering encouragement, and staying accountable. Engage consistently in prayer, worship, and service. These habits create an environment where mutual sharpening thrives. 3. Reflect on a time when a relationship helped you grow spiritually. What elements of that relationship were most beneficial? Answer: healthy spiritual relationships often involve honesty, prayer, and love. The most beneficial relationships are those where both individuals are humble enough to receive correction and courageous enough to give it in love. 4. How can you create an environment in your assembly or small group that encourages mutual sharpening and accountability? Answer: by promoting open dialogue rooted in Scripture, encouraging prayer partnerships, and cultivating a culture of love over judgment. When truth is spoken with grace, people feel safe to grow and change. 5. What steps can you take to ensure that your interactions with others are constructive and lead to mutual edification, as described in Proverbs 27:17? Answer: pray before speaking, listen with empathy, and measure your words by Scripture. Let your goal in every interaction be to build up, not tear down. Speak the truth in love and seek peace through understanding. Remember, even our Messiah was betrayed by Judas, someone who walked beside him daily. Yet that moment fulfilled prophecy and brought salvation. Painful, sharpening moments don't destroy us. They expose pride and strengthen humility. May your relationships be guided by truth, rooted in love, and sharpened by the Spirit of Yah. Thank you for watching Feast on Torah. If this message blessed you, please like, share, and subscribe until the next lesson. Shalom.